Hello everyone, my name is Sheila Atchley and welcome to my home. In order to welcome you into my studio and my creative spaces, I first have to welcome you into my home. My studio is a home studio. Once my nest emptied, I was able to take over a spare bedroom. And then slowly from there, my practice has grown to take over 3 pretty major areas of my home. And so we need to get started right away because there's so much to show you, so many fun details. But I thought I would begin with showing you what was my very first home studio. And to share that with you, we just have to go into the dining room because my first home studio was this corner cabinet. I stored some supplies behind the cabinet doors and used the other 3 shelves, and that was it. That was all I had, and I made all of my art on our dining room table. And you know what? Those were some of the sweetest days ever. I don't regret them at all. And so now, if you'll go down the hallway to the second door on the right, that is my main creative space. And we will go in there and get started there. It's a tiny room, so I apologize ahead of time. I will try to turn the camera very slowly so that you don't get too dizzy. As you can see, the light in here is basically atrocious. I try to think of it as moody light. The only natural source of light is that one window. And I do have this beautiful little chandelier that my daughter Hannah made me. And as you can see, it gives off a rather ugly kind of warm incandescent light. I try not to use it. I have 2 really large studio lights, and they're in here typically all of the time. But for purposes of this video, I had to move them out because they're enormous, they're very ugly, and they'd be hard to maneuver around. My favorite thing about this space is the sign on the wall right there. Beauty defies despair. And I'm going to do my best to also work with the autofocus on this camera. So I also apologize for that ahead of time if it goes in and out of focus. This is the only major wall that I have in this studio. This is where I keep anything that as yet, for whatever reason, has not sold. The next favorite thing about this space is this little vintage cart that my husband found for me on Craigslist when I first moved out of that corner cabinet and into this room. He bought this cart for me. You guys, that is heavy as a mother. It's unbelievably heavy. You'll notice that I don't have the typical artist's easel in this room. And that's because for me, it's highly impractical. It's actually a waste of space for me. So I use a table easel on top of that cart. And last year I discovered that the back of the cart has this cool, I'll turn the light on so you can see, has this cool little enclave behind it. And so I keep my pigments, some of my solvents, just, little fun things behind there. And I'll swing around here. Let me turn this light off first. All right, I'll swing around here to the front of the cart. That's where I keep everything related to oil painting. I keep my oils, brushes, some of my solvents. You have to keep that separate from anything that you use for watercolor or acrylics. I'll come around to the front of this cart. I'll show you what's in the drawers just because that's kind of fun. There's the top drawer, the second drawer for oil pigments, oil sticks, pan pastels. The next drawer is just random papers. So is the next drawer. This drawer has all of my stamps and stamp carving supplies. And then the bottom drawer just has all of those weird things that you keep because you think you might someday use it. So, all right, here's the favorite thing. My favorite thing about this table easel is this little metal sign. Can you read that? That can be offensive to a lot of people, given the fact that I am a pastor's wife, but you guys, I don't really care. Because whenever I come to this corner to make, here's what happens. My brain begins to tell me I'm not good enough. My brain begins to tell me I'm an imposter. My brain begins to tell me that my art is not as good as so-and-so's. Those are all lies. Those are all BS. And so whenever I come here and I stand up and I pick up the paintbrushes, usually 3 in one hand, and I get to work, this is what I answer back to every lie that pops up in my thinking. You gotta do what you gotta do. All right, that little room divider is a place where I keep some works in progress that are on paper or little images that inspire me. I have 2 sets of shelves there where I keep all of my main supplies. I'll tell you about this. This is really fun. It's an antique whatchamacallit that I found on eBay. And as soon as I saw it, I don't know, a light bulb just went off in my head because I love to do plein air painting, but I was searching for an effective way to transport my small plein air paintings back home. So this is the perfect thing. Each one of these little wooden shelves slides in and out. And so whenever I take my oils out on location, I always paint small, either anywhere from 8x10 to 4x6, and all of it can fit here. In fact, especially if I work 5x7 or 4x6, I can bring home more than a dozen oil paintings in this one little box. And it's got handles here. It transports beautifully. Okay, I'll swing you around slowly. Those are my daughter's dried floral art pieces on the wall. I have 2 closets, and I will never open those doors and show you what's behind it because it's really bad and I don't have time to clean it up. And the next favorite thing about this space here is this beautiful table. Now, everything in my home has a story. My stuff is never just stuff. They're gifts from God. And this table is no exception, but there's not really time to tell you the story behind it. But it was a God kiss. It was very supernatural, the way that the Lord brought it into my life. And it solved a desperate need that I had because I struggle with intermittent back trouble. And I do the good nutrition and I do the stretching and I do the exercises, but sometimes my back can still get the better of me. And so this table, I'll show you, can do this. I can lower it if I want to sit and work, or I can raise it if I want to stand and work, which is the case 99.99% of the time. I prefer to stand. I am in the process of filming a class for Jeanne's Creative Network called Middle Makers, a blueprint for late bloomers. So definitely in the process of getting that one out to you. And so there was no way I was going to be able to clean off this table for this video because I've got to keep track of everything that I'm working on for that class. And again, there's the sign, beauty defies despair. That is a rallying cry for me. That and beep the little sign in the corner of that table easel. Those are the rallying cries for me in this room. Those are the things that I say to my soul, I speak to my soul, and it inspires me to get to work for the sake of people that need that kind of inspiration. All right, we won't even talk about all this stuff there. Oh, there is one thing I wanted to show you, moving slowly, and that's my little nesting chair where I will sit and read my Bible or sit and read art inspiration books. That's my traveling studio. That's my art bag right there. I didn't mean to have that sitting on this chair, but the little pillow, let me move it. The pillow on that chair, benevolence, an act of kindness or just the inclination to be kind. You might wonder why that is on my chair, and it's just this reason. I truly believe that every act of making, and then especially the act of sharing what you make, is actually an act of deep benevolence. It is a kindness. When you get into your studio, whether you have a separate, beautiful, gorgeous studio, or you have a tiny table in the corner of a dining room, when you make and when you share what you've made, that is an incredible act of generosity. It's an act of benevolence. It is not, move that out of the way. It is not a selfish or self-centered thing. So I want to deeply encourage you, first of all, to make, obviously, to make, and then please share. Share with the world. Share on social media. Gift your art to your closest friends and family. We're in this for the sake of others, right? Ourself, yes, because art is so good for for the care and maintenance of a well soul. But also, I think when we make and then when we share, I believe it gives others a big fat permission slip to do the same. So just think of your making as benevolence, because it is. The next creative space of mine is across the hall. This is my admin area. This is where I do all of my writing, admin, writing for blogs, magazine articles, whatever. This sign on the wall here is so special to me. I created it for the class on Jeanne Oliver's Creative Network called Playing with Fire. One of the things I know about writing is this: spend it all, shoot it, play it, lose it all right away every time. My tendency is to think I can save some of my best, most beautiful words and ideas for some rainy day or some big special thing. And honestly, that time never comes, and it never will come if I don't share everything that I have every day and give it all I've got when I come into this room. Now, just like most of you, I'm also a multi-hyphenate creative. I'm also a jewelry designer and maker. So this is the tray where I keep a lot of my beads and supplies. And then I have this little turnstile thing right there where I keep other supplies. And I'll slowly back up and show you something else really interesting about this room, not the handheld vac. This is my wall chalkboard wall. Words are hard today. Across the top of it, this is something that my husband did for me. He put up that board, put the pegs in it because I needed a place where I could work super large, way bigger than that. That's a pretty big canvas. But sometimes I need to work on canvases that are almost the size of my walls here. So he put up that pegboard for me. When I come in here to work big, I put on my jumpsuit and I clear away the tray of the jewelry making supplies. and I replace it with a tray with whatever paints I'll be using for whatever I am working on. And I'm just really careful to keep what's over here away from what's over here. Something else, like probably almost all of you, I am just obsessed with tearing out beautiful quotes and taping them to my walls. Any wall, every room, all the time. I never stop. It used to drive my husband crazy, but now he's used to it. I love this, The Art of Conversation. I'll read one more to you before we leave this room, and that's this one. You don't want to create a life where everything is for yourself. That's not part of the deal. Learning how to share it and include others is part of life. I try to keep that in mind in everything that I do. One more thing that I forgot to share with you about my main creative space, this room, is that little thing right there. When I first began to realize that I wanted to create and film art classes, I, just like many of you, looked at all the expensive equipment, and I know I couldn't afford a bit of it at the time. So I ruminated over that for days, wondering, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And then all of a sudden, I remembered something. Literally, I think it was the Lord that brought this to my mind. In a dusty, forgotten corner of our garage, do you remember those heavy box televisions from the early 90s? And you could mount them to the wall on these little tubes. I asked my husband, could that be mounted right there? And could you bend an aluminum pole? We measured from the wall to the center of the table. I asked him, could you bend an aluminum tube and mount a camera mount to the end of it? He said, absolutely. And so you guys, what was a major problem that I thought would take hundreds of dollars to solve, we solved in about 30 minutes for $0. Because my husband already had the aluminum tube, and of course we had the mounting, and we actually also had the mount that's on the end. I also have one for a DSLR camera. Right now that just happens to be the smartphone mount, because that's what I am using presently. All right, the last creative space is actually all the way down to the end of the hall, in my master bedroom. We're getting real personal here. Sorry about that, but that's the way it has to be. All right, here we are. What happens here is packaging and shipping. And also, one of my new, multi-hyphenate person, one of my new passions is creating some beautiful organic self-care type of products. So I got a little apothecary going on over on those shelves. But the cool thing I wanted to show you is this cabinet. This past December, this was actually the preacher's idea. He stumbled across this cabinet. Actually, my daughter Sarah and her artist husband, Jonathan Howe, were getting rid of it. And my husband thought that could be where my wife does her packing and shipping. So he brought it up to his workshop. He made it much taller. He added, some pieces of wood to the bottom of it and raised it up. And I'll show you how this works in just a minute. But first, I wanted to open the drawer and show you what's in the drawer, just because it's fun. All of my business cards, ribbons, packaging supplies, wax seals. This is where I keep all of my stickers for the outside of my boxes. And then down here, behind these cabinets, I've got those clear cello bags, and I've got mats and backer boards, just all the things. Whenever I need to mat and frame a print, whenever I need to box up multiple things, because yay for sales, right? My art is selling reliably now. So I am shipping every single week, and sometimes I will do something. One example is this past Christmas. It's what gave my husband the idea to make this cabinet for me. I sold about 40 handmade Christmas ornaments. And so in the process of creating those, packaging those, and shipping those, my back went out horribly, you guys, horribly. And so that's when Tim said, that's it. You've got to have a better situation, because I was packaging and shipping things on the dining room table, on our bed. It was just a mess. So I'm going to turn this off, and I'll turn the camera back on so I can show you the way this works. Hello, here I am. This is what happens here. He made this much taller, like I said, put these on sliders, just the little furniture mover sliders. And now I can pull this out, and it goes on and on and on and on and on. When I have it all the way pulled out, I have to push these chairs all the way forward, and there are about 6 leaves that can go side by side by side. And you see how tall this is. It's right at waist level. So I'm able to come behind here and lay out large prints, able to mat them, frame them, clean the glass, all the things, just from right here. Then you can push it all back away when you're done. All right, so I keep all of my boxes here. Again, my apothecary area, some reference material. And then I always like to keep an extra old iPad when I'm back here packaging, because you know how you'll have, 2 orders, 10 orders, 12 orders, and I like to be able to keep track of everything from right there. Supplies for cleaning the glass, for framing prints. In that corner is all the various paper products that I have to use in the packaging and shipping process. Some extra frames. Let's see, what else to talk about? I keep my giclées, my canvas prints. These are the only ones I have left that haven't sold yet. They all just sit right there. That was one of my very first trays that I used as a palette. It was a copper tray, so I'm saving it forever. I'll never part with that. And I'll just slowly turn so you get a sense of this room where I do absolutely all of my packaging and shipping in the same room where I put on my makeup every morning. Thank you so much for coming along this studio tour. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it wasn't boring. I hope it wasn't tedious. You can find me on the internet at sheilaatchley.art. That is sheilaatchley.art, or you can find me on Instagram at Sheila Atchley Designs. I hope you're deeply encouraged to be creative with what you have, where you are. Truly, you can make just about any situation work. And I hope you also remember that making and sharing what you've made is a benevolent, generous thing. Bye.